Right, now what we're going to do is we're going to see how to actually work inside of ZBrush. So before we can work in ZBrush, one thing that we can do is we can take an object from 3ds Max that we create here, basically a base mesh, take that to ZBrush, sculpt it, make it look really nice, and then bring it back to 3ds Max. So to do that is actually pretty simple. First of all, I'm going to take this stuff here and I'm going to hide this stuff, and I'm going to go to unhide by name. And the thing I want to unhide is this hidden object here that I left for us called base mesh for ZBrush. So I'm going to go ahead and unhide that. And you can see it's a pretty simple object. All it is this low-res object. If I look at the wireframe, it's pretty simple. Okay, and this low-res object we're going to be taking into ZBrush so that we can sculpt it and make it look nice. Alright, now this object right now is very squarish in nature. What this is, it's a base sub-D object, okay? So this is where sub-Ds comes in very, very handy. If I take this object and I turn on use NURM subdivision, you can see it now, it's a sub-D object. It's been subdivided. And let me increase the iterations. You can see as I increase the iterations, the resolution gets better, so the object looks more rounded, more detailed. And if I take off the wireframe, you can see how it looks. Okay, so when this goes into ZBrush, basically it's going to be the same exact thing. It's going to get subdivided. What you want is to have a base mesh that subdivides very, very nicely. And in order to do that, you want to make sure you have quad topology. Now, as I've mentioned previously, ZBrush likes quad topology. It doesn't really enjoy triangles, and it really hates n-gons. So you want to make sure you take a mesh that has quads, 4-sided polygons, as that's going to work out best. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it at 0. I'm going to turn off the NURM subdivision there, and I want to export this object to ZBrush. ZBrush works with the OBJ file format. So what you need to do is select your object. We're going to go to export, export selected, and export it to a directory where you can find things easily. And you want to make sure you choose the OBJ format. Give this thing, a name that you can find it easily. So maybe something like panel low res. What I like to do is I like to use the following naming convention. For example, I'll call this panel underscore from underscore 3ds Max. This way I know where this object originated from, which makes it very easy. Okay. So in the OBJ export options, you can leave all these options at default. The default options will work out just fine. There's also presets over here that you can choose. So if you were going to Cinema 4D, for example, or Lightwave, or Maya, or Modo, you can choose those presets. There's actually a preset for ZBrush, which is probably what you want to choose, as it's going to set up everything for you a little bit better. And that's it. Just hit export, and this thing will export out. And then we can open up ZBrush and load it inside of ZBrush. So why don't you go ahead and do that. Open up ZBrush, import the object, and then we'll get started sculpting. Alright, so we're here in ZBrush. I've already imported the object as an OBJ. And step one is to go ahead and subdivide this thing by a pretty good amount, not too much. But just enough so we can start doing some editing to this. So I'll check out my brushes. There's a lot of brushes in ZBrush 4. I like to use quite a few of them. So let's go ahead and try to use the blob brush real quick, and we'll take down the Z sub a little bit. Subtle is better. I find that that works out a lot better. So usually use very small Z sub and Z add amounts when you're sculpting. It'll just give you a lot more control. So we can use like the Rake brush, for example, which is fantastic for doing damage to objects and just making things look really cool. You can kind of even make this object look like it's been scratched up, dinged up pretty good. And that just adds more realism to it. And just makes it more believable, makes the environment kind of pop out a little bit more when objects look like they have some kind of a history to them. Something's happened to them. They've been worn and torn over time. It just makes things a lot more believable. So we'll just keep adding subtle details here, just sculpting in with the soft concrete brush. And a very small amount of Z sub, only a value of about 3. Something below 10 will be pretty good. And it's extremely subtle. I mean, it's very small details, but it does make all the difference. You don't want to go too crazy with it and just completely destroying the form of the object. You want to create enough damage so the object has a believable amount of detail, nothing too exaggerated. So using a fracture brush is great too, because you can create some more wear and tear, and by switching alphas with the fracture brush, or any brush that supports an alpha, you can create pretty much an unlimited combination of details here in ZBrush. So pretty much it's your imagination is the only thing that sets a limit to your creativity, to what you can accomplish here in ZBrush. So it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Just go into this panel. Remember to use symmetry to go ahead and get two sides of an object done simultaneously. It just lets you work faster if that's what you're going for. So you can see ZBrush has a ton of brushes we can use. I tend to use the slash brushes quite a bit. If you look at this, you can actually use the slash brush to create some very interesting damaged objects. Kind of make it look like maybe it's something that came out of a Jurassic Park game or movie or something like that. Maybe some dinosaurs or raptor came and scratched this panel, and it was maybe leaping toward a potential target or prey. Some guy just rolled out of the way and it ended up scratching the panel, and who knows what happened to the guy. Hopefully he made it, but you never know. So just keep adding more. There's different variations of different brushes. So like the slash brush has about 3 or 4 different variations, and they do different things. Like the slash 3, I like it because it doesn't create these slashes where it looks like, you know, a dinosaur or something very sharp slashed across something, but it makes more of these soft slashes that look like dents. So it's great for doing aluminum panels, metallic objects that are just dented in. So if you're doing like maybe an old car in an abandoned place or something like that, you can put some nice dents into the hood and on the panels of the car and stuff like that. In this case, you can see how I can very quickly and easily use the slash brush to make some dents. And the pinch brush is great because the pinch brush takes areas and just pinches them together just to give things more detail. You can get a little more control. I like using a polish brush as well. The polish brush is excellent for doing, well, as you can see here, this kind of clay sort of polishing look to objects. I find that using, again, subtle amounts can give you great results. And you can switch from Z add and Z sub just to get different sort of looks. So right now, these brushes can work great for doing things like metal that looks like it's been welded or just damaged and stuff like that. The noise brush is fantastic. I tend to use this very often when working in ZBrush. It's great for adding noise detail to objects. It's especially good for doing like metals that are corroded or rusted, that are going to be chipped away over time and just have damage to them. It's especially great for doing rocky type hard surfaces, so things like rocks or concrete and just rough walls and things like that. The noise brush is fantastic for doing that kind of stuff. It's also great for doing maybe fossils or old bones and things like that. So the possibilities with the noise brush are pretty vast. So we'll just add some more noise to this, and feel free to just go crazy with it. Right now this object is just for normal mapping illustration purposes. So we can come in here. You can use the skin brush for a lot of things. Obviously it's best used for skin, but you can actually use it in creative ways just to add some more detail to inorganic objects, not just creatures and people and animals, but you can use it for metals too. Just change the alpha around and the values and you can get some nice subtle detail. In this case right here I'm using the weave brush, and it's actually pretty good just to add some extra detail to the metal. Make it look like the metal's really corroded and really messed up and dinged up pretty good. So I mean, you can use your imagination. This could be like just a piece of metal panel, you know, on the interior of maybe a spaceship or something like that. Maybe do some sci-fi sort of scene that takes place maybe on a ship where something went completely wrong. Obviously, if the inside's dinged up this good, I don't know, maybe aliens invaded it, maybe some kind of monsters or some kind of genetic experiment gone wrong on the ship or something like that. So you can use your imagination there and try to fill in those blanks. Again, the slash brush is just something that I tend to use very, very often in my workflow of ZBrush. It's just so versatile. And every now and then I'll just use the standard brush to push and pull things here and there, just touch things up a little bit. Alright, so I think this is going to do it right here. Okay, so now that we're finished sculpting this, it's time to go ahead and get it out of ZBrush into the OBJ format. So what you probably want to do is save this out as a Z tool, which you could. Whenever you're done working in ZBrush on any type of object, it's always a good idea to save it out as a Z tool. To do that, it's pretty simple. Just come up here to the tool palette, click on Save As, and in the prompt, just save it under whatever name you want as Z tool, ZTL object. Okay. What we want to do now is we want to export this object out as an OBJ so that we can import it into a 3D package. This will give you the flexibility to, be able to import it into various 3D packages, as the OBJ format is supported by lots of 3D software out there. So just click on Export and then just give it whatever name you want. Save it out to a file directory where you can find it easily and quickly, and that's it.